Welcome back, guys. This is Jeremy. Just as a brief recap for those who didn't see the last one, this is a faith deconstruction journey through the lens of one who became disillusioned after spending the first 3 decades of his life in fundamentalist Christianity. I am going to get into the details of my backstory next time, but for right now, I thought it useful to take a little bit more time for clarification of who these videos are going to be useful for and who they could actually be harmful to. So basically, what I wanted to clarify was, it can be a very bad thing to find yourself feeling just alone and unsupported, unrepresented, and I hope that these videos are going to meet some of you in that place, where that you can feel validated, where you can know that you're not the only one, where you can maybe be reminded you're not going crazy. But it's one thing to say that and maybe even to rationally accept that, and it's another thing to struggle with all the uncertainty and really the ambiguity of the chain reaction, right, of what it means to be going through a process like this. Because any significant change in your life, it can be experienced like trauma. I want to say like trauma because, I'm not saying that every change in life is trauma. But, think about the growing pains that you had as a teenager, as your body is trying to enter adulthood. That's not an easy process. You think about leaving home for the first time. Maybe that, I'm sure for some of you that was pretty upsetting, and it was hard to even put words to why it was upsetting. Sometimes we go through things and there's this sense of insecurity because we're leaving what has been familiar and we are leaving what has been predictable. There's a very real comfort in knowing what to expect. So when you leave that, or when you leave something that really has been a foundation of your life, it's important to acknowledge that it has been a foundation of your life. Otherwise, you may end up finding yourself downplaying something as if, well, why am I feeling this way? It shouldn't be a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a change. It's you maybe no longer identifying with something that you always took to be part of yourself. Something that probably friends and family still believe is part of yourself. And maybe you're not completely walking away from that, but maybe you were in a place right now where you couldn't say one way or the other as far as which way it's going to go once you get to the end of your questions. If you get to the end of your questions, you see where I'm going with this. But the other thing is, once you feel validated, or you even feel like you make some sort of breakthrough, maybe not a complete breakthrough, maybe it's not like, yes, this is the direction I'm going with my life from this point on, but maybe partly, maybe to say, see, I'm not the only one, this is what's wrong with this whole system, this is why I left it, this is why you should too. That's what I want to guard against, especially if you've been hurt. Then once you finally feel like you're coming out of that isolation of not only being, let's say, maybe neglected, maybe abused, maybe dismissed, maybe overlooked. Once you start to come out of that, once you feel safe to tell your story, let's even just start there. Once you know that you're not the only one, sometimes you may find yourself getting up in arms and wanting to overthrow the system or save people from a system that you think has become a lost cause. The point that I want to hammer home, the reason that I'm including this before I get into episodes that get into details of what my experience has been like and what questions still weigh on me, is just to draw this line and say, You don't have to go to war right now. If you are hurting, you need to acknowledge a wound and recognize that wounds need rest and recovery time. So let's look at this in a wartime analogy. If you've already been shot, you need to be where you can get medical care. You don't need to be going back out on the battlefield or carrying out missions. Even if you are sure that that's something that needs to be done, bear in mind, if you gain some sense of clarity, maybe from something I said in one of these videos, or something really connects with you, or you see, hey, there's truth in that, or hey, I'm not the only one, it could create a sense of urgency in you that makes you think, I've got to do something about this, and it has to be now. It doesn't have to be now. It's okay for you to take a little time to kind of settle into what this means for you. And bear in mind, as potentially even offensive as this could be to hear me say this, there are going to be people who are satisfied and content and even thriving in the system that really hurt you. You know, some of us grew up in a system that really taught us all or nothing thinking, very black and white mindset of there being one right way, and if it's not the one right way, then it's wrong. And that can make it difficult to see clearly with things that, let's say, even in terms of process, maybe we're not even talking doctrines, maybe we're talking process, that can look different from one person to the next, that there are just plain differences, and there's not going to be a copy and paste way to do life the right way, which sounds completely ridiculous as a thing to even say to begin with, because there's so many variables. How could you even? But anyways, that is just to say, if you find yourself feeling understood, and you find the ire raising up in you, and you start to think, I need to go out and attack this thing that hurt me, maybe that isn't what you need. Maybe you do need somebody to listen, but maybe you need to be sure that the audience you're confiding in is one that you can count on being respectful and not just aggravating the wound in what is already an exposed nerve. This is why I caution you, because at the end of the day, it's your choice, and I wouldn't pretend that I had any kind of authority to make any kind of these choices for you. But I do want you to be helped by this and not further harmed. So join me next time to find a little bit more about me.